Welcome back to Real Talk with Susan Stone and Kristina Supler. We are full-time moms and attorneys bringing our student defense legal practice to life with real, candid conversations. So I just got back, folks out there in listening land, from Portugal, and I haven't even told this story to Kristina yet. So one morning I'm at breakfast and I see a cute family, a mom, a dad, and a little boy. And I had noticed them the other day at breakfast, and I actually had noticed them the evening before at dinner. We had landed at the same restaurant, probably because the concierge always sends you to the same restaurant. Do you guys know that out there?
Totally true.
Totally true. And the little boy is just being so well behaved. And I remember when my kids were little that it was really difficult in a restaurant.
I'd have such anxiety going to restaurants
You
with
remember?
kids. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Talking to the mother, she's fascinating. She was really lovely. They're from the UK. And I said, I cannot believe how well behaved your son is. I remember when my kids were little and, how well they're doing on this trip to Portugal. While it was a lovely romantic vacation for my hubby and I didn't really see it as a place for
Kids, families.
Yeah, I mean, it was. There were a lot of family, but when my kids were little, they just wanted to splish splash at the pool, do kid stuff. I did a lot of kid stuff. And she said, I really believe that to raise children, they need to be bored and come up with their own creativity. And in theory, I play by that rule too. Kids need to engage in imaginative play. But, Kristina, the kid's face was glued
To a tablet, let me guess.
to a tablet. I'm like,
I saw where you were going with this.
that is not imaginative play. In my days, I would give my kids blank paper, not even coloring books, and some crayons at a restaurant and say, keep yourself busy, dude. And then they didn't. They misbehaved. But that stuck with me.
Sure. In this day and age, when in any situation for kids, the minute there's like even a hint of misbehavior, you give them a device. And even for adults, if you think about it in an awkward situation, you have time to kill. What do? We immediately turn to our devices versus looking around us, talking to a stranger, looking at something on the street. It's just, we are so into our devices, whether it's kids or adults.
Oh, how many times have you gone out to dinner with someone and their faces in their phone? And I've done it. And I'm not judging this parent because you know what? I didn't have that available when I raised my kids.
And I just also, as a working mom, I just have, I just think about, you have a long day, you want to enjoy an evening out with your family, with your kids, you want to have family time. And then something starts to unravel or someone's a little cranky or who knows what the situation is. I get it. Like, it's easy to just say, here, honey, okay, look at my phone. And
so is the tablet the older kid pacifier?
sure, look at that. I
Wow.
think so. Yes, the tablet is the modern day passy. There
Yes.
you go.
Oh, there's your baby bop. Or as Josh, I'm going to embarrass you out there. He used to call him his baby But why don't you introduce our guest?
Sure. So today we are really happy to be talking with Andrew Fishman. And we're going to talk.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Andrew. Andrew's a licensed clinical social worker and therapist based in the Chicago area. He specializes in working with adolescents. Certified in treating video game addiction, Andrew is dedicated to addressing the challenges faced by young individuals in today's digital world. Passies everywhere. He actively contributes in the field of video games and mental health by sharing his insights and knowledge through his articles on Psychology Today. Andrew's expertise has garnered attention beyond the realm of therapy. He's been featured in publications like the Wall Street Journal and Al Jazeera. He's also given a host of noteworthy speeches. Today, what drew us to Andrew was an article that appeared in Psychology Today entitled, Why So Many Teens Use Video Games to Meet Others. And so this is a cool topic that we're going to jump into. And again, Andrew, we're really happy to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you again.
So let's kick it off. Your article, which I have right here with me, Why So Many Teens Use Video Games to Meet Others. Your premise is that the video games have become the new mall where kids
Mhm.
meet. Can you
Yeah.
talk about this and elaborate a little more?
So kids really want to spend time with each other in person, but where can they go? They want to hang out with each other in person, but there's nowhere to do it. When I was a kid, we had all sorts of places to go. That was 20 years ago, but all those places, I looked at them, they're all closed. And
Oh, yeah.
Or you don't feel safe sending them. My
so
dad used to drop me off at the mall.
I was going to say, in my day, it was
Mhm.
Camelot Music. We all went and hung
Yeah.
out at the music store. So there's not a lot of places for kids to go. I'm saying kids, but teens, young adults. And
People's houses. Why not?
Mhm.
The basement.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's one of the places that they have. I think part of the problem for my clients at least, is how do you get to those places? If both your parents now work, and you don't have a car yet. You can't go to somebody else's house. And a lot of the parents don't want their kids going anywhere during, on a school night, which makes a certain amount of sense, but that's now 5/7 of your week that you can't see other people. And so they come home on a Monday night and they're exhausted from school and they want to see somebody else. They want to talk to a peer. And their options are calling somebody on the phone, which nobody does, or they can text each other, which a lot of them do, or they on Snapchat or something, or they can have a long, fun voice chat while sharing a game. And so those, what they call third spaces, which is a place other than school or work or home, but the malls, the bowling alleys, the churches, all sorts of the places we used to meet people. This has become their third place where you go home after school and you can go to a virtual third place and spend as much time with your friends as you want. And so it certainly makes sense that you would go there.
How do you talk to each other? Or are you just playing? Explain how it works to this.
Are people who are in these online communities only talking about the video games? Or are these people talking about, I don't know, favorite food, sports teams, life?
It depends on the game, but generally, yeah, people talk about all sorts of things. When they're with friends, people talk about their day. They complain about teachers. They do all the typical adolescent conversations. And even if they're not talking about their lives outside of the games and they're just talking about it, I still think it's a positive experience.
Wait,
If
are they
I'm going-
talking or is it texting?
It's a good question. There's both. So some of the games, most games, if there's a multiplayer component, will have a text feature in the game. Some of them also have a voice chat, and there's also supplementary apps you can use. There's one that's really popular called Discord.
We
It's
know
a website,
Discord.
yep. So it's for listeners, it's a website or app that you can use to communicate and build little virtual communities. I'm in a few of them myself. They're fun, but it also has a feature where you can just make a group of friends and then set everybody up with a headset and then chat on this external app while playing a game.
Andrew, these online gaming communities, they're obviously extremely popular. Were they popular pre-COVID, or do you think COVID really caused the huge surge in the involvement of young people in these online communities?
Actually, they've always been popular. I think that it's certainly, there was definitely a surge. And I think a lot of the surge was people much older than adolescents, where I wasn't always online talking to people
That's
in video
interesting. It
games.
brought adults, I think, huh?
Yeah. And so suddenly I was alone in my apartment. I needed something to do. I wasn't allowed to go outside for a lot of it. And so I could go to somebody's virtual island in Animal Crossing and go run around and catch bugs there. And so that was just a nice way to spend time with other people. And so there was definitely a surge. I think the surge might have happened with our age kind of people, though.
Is it limited to your own friend group or can strangers infiltrate? And is this state?
That's a really important point. So there are many people just talk to their friends. Some people only talk to the people on their team. If you're playing a team-based game, us versus them. And sometimes you're just open to anybody who's around you can hear you talk and you can talk to them. They can
I
talk
like
to you.
that. I don't like
Right.
that.
And so that gets ugly really quickly. I hate that. I don't usually use it at all. Because as soon as I turn on a game, if I have what's called public chat on, there are slurs, there's derogatory comments made, there's just offensive things said pretty quickly. I don't know that I've ever turned on a game and really been happy with the conversation for the whole time. And so most of the time, I just turn off the public chat option.
I'm going to ask you
Yeah,
a question, Kristina, and
Sure.
then I want to know what the expert has to think. Would you allow your youngest is how old for our listening?
Almost 10.
Would you allow your 10-year-old to play this type of game? And I'd like to know what Andrew thinks about what age is appropriate.
Chatting and interacting with others, no. But Animal Crossing, for example, is fairly benign. My son does play Animal Crossing, and I've watched it, and it's a little animal game with the setting and the age specification for, the version we bought. But I mean, what do you think on that, Andrew, in terms of kids, let's say grade school, third, fourth, fifth, even sixth grade, and these online games with the community interaction component and chatting?
Yeah. What age is recommended in your professional opinion?
I think it depends on the kid and the level of maturity. So for public chat, I wouldn't let them use it until 16, 17 at the earliest, if they're mature enough to handle hearing some really heinous things and they know how to handle them. For chatting with their friends, that's a different story for me. If you would let them talk to their friends on the phone unsupervised, it's probably fine to have them talk to each other while playing a game. That doesn't bother me at all. But public chat, even I turn that off most of the time. It's bad in some places.
Do you think we should put a time restriction on how long you let your kid play? Because you would let your kid go to the mall for hours.
And so there is some evidence that being on screens for too long every day is harmful, but it depends, I guess, what the alternative is. If they have the option to go to soccer practice, that's probably better for their physical health than their mental health, is to be running around and being with people in person. But if not, if they would be sitting and playing a video game by themselves versus playing it with friends, I would encourage with friends anyway. And if they're not showing any signs of video games doing harm to them, there's probably not much of an issue with sitting around and playing for several hours.
Andrew, I can just imagine my peers, my friends, and Susan and I were based in Cleveland. And so though we're not in Chicago or New York, we're also not in a total social desert. And I can just hear people I know saying, why would anyone prefer this online socialization? I don't get it. So can you shed some light on why, in fact, some people do prefer online socialization?
It's a lot easier for some people. It might be the only thing that's possible for some of them. So take, for instance, somebody who has depression. It is just by definition really hard to get out of bed. You have low mood. It is hard for you to just find the energy to do anything, let alone set up plans and then leave the house and get dressed and showered and then go out and get to the place and then have to use all this energy to socialize the way you want to. That might literally not be possible for some people.
But would you say, from a therapeutic perspective, the goal is to maybe use it for scaffolding? Or do you think it's enough for some people? Meaning, would you say if someone has severe depression, okay, why don't we start here? But I really want to get you so you're going to a party and not abstaining from a party. Or do you think, this works? If it's not broken and this person can socialize this way, who cares? What's the downside?
And a lot of the time I do want to use it as a scaffolding, as a less bad option, because research shows that it's not as good to be online as it is to be in person. I think
that was going to be my question. Yep.
And so it's better than not having a person to talk to, for sure, but it is not as good as going out to a party if you have the ability to do. And so we're comparing, I think, 3 categories of people. One is the people who just who do not have the ability to make friends in person for a variety of reasons. People who can, but it's difficult. And then people who really have a choice. They go out all the time and they also want to supplement that with games. And so each one of those I would encourage to be in person whenever possible. But it sounds like for each of those 3 categories of people, and for all of us, if your choice is being isolated and alone in your place, or to be sharing even a virtual space with somebody else, that's probably better for your mental health, just as a social animal.
What about having someone over and playing chess or Monopoly or Scrabble or Bananagrams?
I think, though, what I'm hearing Andrew say is that for many, that's just not an option for potentially a variety of reasons. And so I think that, I don't know, would anyone disagree that having a friend over to play a board game is preferred to online social interaction? Probably not. But maybe for whatever reason, you have an ill family member, you live in the middle of nowhere. Who knows? Maybe you can't. Andrew,
Those are good points, Kristina.
So we read a lot in the news and in magazines and newspapers about the negative effects of video games, video game addiction,
online addiction, your thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the predators trolling these online chat groups. And some really fear the internet in terms of allowing their children to have interaction with it. In your opinion, what are some of the red flags that parents should really watch out for in terms of gauging whether their child's use of the internet is becoming problematic?
And is video addiction, is it real? Or is it just no limitations?
I think you're heading at the heart of something really important, is that there isn't a consensus yet. So there's a thing called the DSM. You may or not be familiar with it. It's what psychologists and psychiatrists use to diagnose people. Video game addiction is in there, but only in the back as a condition for future study. So they're aware of it. They're researching it. They're not sure whether to put it in or not. But some of those criteria that they're suggesting might be in there are what you would expect. The letting it interfere with your schoolwork or your professional life. If you're choosing to play a game instead of hanging out with people in person, if you're spending more money on games than you can afford.
Sounds like any vice, really.
Yeah, it is. Yes. Where if it is starting to affect your quality of life, it's affecting the way that you live and you have lost control over it, that it's like any vice, but it seems like video games are intentionally made to be habit forming. So it does feel a little more specific, like a kind of addiction rather than, let's say, eating or golf, because you could have the same kind of problems with golf where you would go there instead of Thanksgiving and you could choose to ignore other people and spend a ton of money on it. But golf isn't specifically made to be addicting like video games.
Well, I read an article that people get little dopamine hit when they play video games. Is that real?
Yes. So
like the slots in Vegas.
Yeah. So I think that's a little bit of it is technically correct, but I think that's overblown because technically anything you enjoy gives you dopamine. And so that's just the mechanism by which your brain tells you that something is fun. And so when people say, well, video games give you dopamine and so does heroin, that's not a fair comparison. Eating something gives you dopamine too. Really anything that that makes you smile is going to give you dopamine. And
For me, an ice cream sundae.
I was just
an ice cream sundae gives you, an ice cream sundae might give you as
not
much.
really,
Yeah.
because it genuinely makes me happy.
Oh my gosh, a little hot fudge and whipped cream and some salted peanut. We got to go to Mitchell today. It is my birthday today, so I want to send it. Yeah, thanks. I get to be with you, Andrew. No, we're socializing right now. I'm getting to know you.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts, Andrew, in terms of guardrails that parents can put in place to help their kids find the balance between, okay, online socialization, good outlet, but also, as Susan says, have a friend over for a board game or go play soccer with some classmates, go ride your bike, whatever. What are your thoughts on parameters parents can put into place?
Or walk the dog. Nothing
I'd
wrong
be
with
thrilled.
walking the dog.
My kids to help walk the dogs.
Walk the dog.
One thing I often recommend to parents is to not take the games away as much as add other things in their place.
I love
So
that.
if you're going to tell your kid, all right, well, you're playing too many video games, you should know we're going to limit you to an hour a day, and you haven't filled that time with something else, then they're going to want to play more and more. They're going to complain. They're going to want to do that. If you then say, all right, so let's get you ballet lessons. That sounds fun. Let's do that 2 days a week. You have expressed interest in that. Let's get you going.
Wasn't it also human nature? The minute you tell someone they can't have something, they're prohibited. It's all you want.
Well, I still remember Saturday nights at home when watching. My lineup was Love Boat, and Fantasy Island.
And you've just aged yourself.
I just did. And then I would spend sometimes, and then Sunday morning cartoons, I could watch those for hours. Is this healthier than regular TV?
There actually isn't very much evidence to suggest that it's any better or worse.
Interesting.
You are being more active while you're playing a video game. So if anything, that aspect is better, but would you rather be playing a game or watching somebody else play one? Or watching somebody else, or just passively watching Netflix for several hours, or engaging with your friends in a virtual space.
That's a great point, Susan, because I hadn't thought about that in terms of, is playing a video game really all that different from just watching TV? Arguably not. And yet, some might argue that video games are unfairly vilified versus a kid plopped in front of the television on Netflix for 3-4 hours.
What I get concerned about, though, is I'm a big pleasure reader. So are you? I love to curl up with a good book and a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. I'm not that picky on my beverages. But do you think, Andrew, kids are just reading for pleasure anymore?
I think yes. I think it depends on the kid and it depends on the environment they grew up in. I think that people watch their parents more than they realize. And so if you are the kind of person who is saying you should be reading more, and you mean it, but you are on your phone playing Candy Crush for several hours a day, they see that. They see that that's what people do. Where if you are the kind of person who shows them through your actions of other things to do, if you are the kind of person who does dedicate time to reading, they might pick that up. Or if you read with them or find books, go to the library, find books recommended for them, find that ones that they would really enjoy, a lot of kids would choose a book.
Or cooking. I spent a lot of time with my 17-year-old in the kitchen, and we cooked some wacky things.
And I love it's just food for thought for parents in terms of...
No pun intended.
There you go.
Yeah.
The environmental influence. Sometimes Susan and I deal with parents who all over the country are dealing with various issues tied to, a child being in crisis, and kids, students of all ages. And sometimes we get these cases with these really big issues. And there's all these therapists and counselors and you name it with outside professionals involved. And sometimes it's like the not easiest, but simple things shouldn't be overlooked. You want your kid to read? Have books in your house. You want your child to be more active, spend less time online with video games? Provide other options, have other stuff in the house available. It's just, as we're talking, I'm just thinking about the importance of not overlooking basics. I'm a big fan of KISS method. Keep it simple.
So were any other parting thoughts? Is there anything we haven't asked you that you really need our listeners to know about what you do? Warning signs, benefits. The floor's open. I'm going to say, take your best shot.
I think one thing that I really want to address is the game Roblox. Because it's the most popular game. It's the most popular game for, I think, 5 to 12-year-olds, or was last year at least. People misunderstand it. They think it is a game. It's a platform for building and playing games. So all of the games, you look like a little Lego person running around. It's very blocky, very sort of Minecraft aesthetic. But you can make any game you want using this software. So I think there are 4 million different games for people to join. You can play tag, or you can play a shooting game, or you can raise pets, or there are millions literally of different kinds of games you can play. And it is as complicated as that because it's so varied. The social environment in a game where people are gardening for fun is going to be very different than one where people are playing something for doing something violent. There was
shooting.
Yeah. There was a really notorious example that they took down, but existed for some time. On
Roblox?
On Roblox, yes.
Okay.
So this was something you could go to and join, at least publicly for at least a while before they caught it and took it down. But there was a concentration camp simulator.
Oh my
gosh.
Which is like the worst thing I could possibly think of for people to be going. To be going and participating in. And this was not meant to be educational or anything. This was just for fun, doing some really hateful things. And so the people in that community are going to be very different than the people in the other ones. And so parents hear, I'm going on Roblox, and they think, okay, Roblox is fine. Roblox is a catch-all term for a lot of things, some of which are great and some of which are really not. And so I think parents should be careful which games they're playing on Roblox, to play with them, to see what kind of game culture they're experiencing. There's voice chat in the game itself, so they can turn that on, then anybody can talk to you if you have that set on to, if you have that setting set on. So that's something to be really careful about. And more than anything, I'd recommend that parents try the games themselves and play along with their kids. Just say, hey, you've been playing that a lot. Can you show me how to do that?
That's tonight's dinner conversation. Do you know what I do with my daughter every night? We Wordle.
Awesome.
I love Wordle.
My kids are big Wordlers too, but I'm not.
Yeah, you're not a Wordler.
I'm not a Wordler, but my kids like it.
I love Wordle, yeah.
Yeah, I love Wordle. And actually, it's interesting because I learn things about my daughter every time I play Wordle in terms of strategy. She's far more strategic than I am. This roadblock, though, listeners out there.
Good tip for parents.
Really.
Play the games with your kids. Know exactly what the games entail. That's, again, really straightforward advice, but excellent advice. So,
ask questions. Wow. We packed a lot in. 30
We did. Well, thanks for joining us, Andrew. It was a real...
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it was a good time chatting with you about these online communities and the gaming world. And I think that you've demystified some points for us, and I think helped us, or hopefully helped our listeners recognize that there's some good in there too, and think about your own child and your circumstances and your family, and just know what's going on with the game. So thanks.
I'm still on Roblox. I can't get off of it, but thank you.
So I don't want to vilify Roblox. There's a lot of good there too. There's a lot of safe communities for kids, but just be careful. Talk to your kids. Play the games with your kids. Just make your own decision as a parent. Yeah. But thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Susan and Kristina. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And leave us a review so other people can find the content we share here. You can follow us on Instagram. Just search our handle @StoneSupler. And for more resources, visit us online at studentdefense.kjk.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our Real Talk community. We'll see you next time.